We are on 7-2 in the green book, fractions, decimals, and percents, which is on page 176. The objectives here are to write percents as fractions and decimals, to write fractions and decimals as percents, and then to compare fractions, decimals, and percents. So right now we're going to rename a percent as a fraction or as a decimal. Okay, so this first one on the left, we're going from a percent to a fraction. Okay, so the first things here, let's do this. We're going to do 55 over 100. Okay, then we're going to simplify that bad boy. The GCF of 55 and 100 is going to be 5. So we're going to divide by 5, divide by 5. Then we're going to do 11 over 20. Okay, so that's how we go from a percent to a fraction. Okay, over here we're going from a percent to a decimal. When you're going from a percent to a decimal, you're going to take this decimal point. So right here, this is 55%, right? The decimal's right there. So we're going from a percent to a decimal. We're going to take this, move it over 2 times to the left. So this is going to be 0.55. That is so sloppy. Let's do 0.55. Okay? All you do is move the decimal point 2 spots to the left, okay? Because we are dividing by 100. Okay? Alrighty, so let's do some more of these. Let's do 14.5%, going from a percent to a decimal. Okay? So we'll put this right here. All we're going to do is take this, move it 2 spots to the left. It's going to be 0.145. Okay? Let's do 12.5%. Let's go from a percent to a fraction here. Okay? So we're going to do this. We're going to do 12.5 over 100. We're going to multiply both by 10 to get rid of that decimal point, which is 125 out of 1,000. Alrighty, we're going to divide. Now 125 actually goes evenly into 125 and to 1,000. So we're going to divide by 125. It's going to give us 1 over, I think it's 8. 1 over 8. Okay? Alrighty. Now let's go from a decimal to a percent. Okay, so if going from a percent to a decimal means we're moving it to the left, what do you think we're going to do for going from a decimal to a percent? Okay, think about it just for a moment. If your thinking is telling you to move this decimal place 2 spots to the right, you are correct. Okay, same thing here. They're basically just inverse operations, or just opposites. So that's going to give us 54. We're going to round to the tenths, so 54.4%. Okay? Alrighty. Let's do 0.773. So right now I want you to pause the video, and I want you to give me what 0.773 is as a percent. We'll come back. We are just going to move this over 2 spots to the right. 77.3%. Okay? Alright, let's go from a fraction to a percent. There are 2 methods here. The first one here is that you can divide the fraction like a division problem, or you can use a proportion. So let's do that first. Let's do the division problem first. Let's do 3/8. Okay, we're going from a fraction to a percent. So right now you're going to divide 3 by 8. Okay, what you should get there, I'm not going to do the math here, but what you should get is 0.375. Okay, so the equivalent decimal to 3/8 is going to be 0.375. But to go one step further, we're going into a percent. So we're going to move that decimal for 2 spots to the right. Okay, if you like that method, you're more than welcome to use that method. You can also use a proportion. So for instance, we're going to stick with 3/8. So we're going to have 3/8 is equal to x over 100. That's how you set it up. So you obviously know what fraction you have. Then you have it equal to x over 100 because we're dealing with percent, so it's always out of 100. You're going to cross multiply. So that's going to give you, let's use that. It's going to give you 8x equals 300. Divide by 8 on both sides. X is going to equal 37.5%. Now, if you use the proportion method, the one good thing about that is that you don't have to then move the decimal point over 2 spots. Since you already set it up in a proportion, you automatically get to your answer versus having to deal with moving that decimal point again. So it's just kind of whichever one that you prefer. If you use the division method, then after you divide, just move that spot, the decimal point over 2 spots to your right, and then smack that percent on there. Labeling is very important, obviously, here. We're dealing with fractions, decimals, and percents. 0.2 is not the same as 0.2%. So you're going to have to make sure to really label your answers carefully. Okay? Last part here is comparing fractions, decimals, and percents. If you are comparing them, they have to be in the same form. Okay? And we've seen this a little bit before. So if I have 9/10 and I have 90%. Now, obviously, I think a lot of you already know that 9 out of 10 equals 90%. So this is equivalent to 90%. So that would be equal. 3 out of 8, and then we have 40%. Is 3 out of 8 greater than, less than, or equal to 40%? So for that reason, you can either put 40 out of 100 and simplify that, or let's do, my advice here is to go from the fraction to a decimal, and then compare it that way. So let's do 3 divided by 8. Now we actually just did this. So it's going to give us 0.375, or we need to go one more spot over to a percent. So remove that decimal point over 2 spots to the right. So the equivalent of 3/8% is going to be 37.5%. And then we have the 40%. So 40% is obviously going to be greater. Okay? All right, I want you to pause the video and try to do this one on your own. When you're ready, hit play, and we'll see if you did it correctly. Okay, so if you got that these two, this fraction and this percent is equal, you are correct. Okay, I divided 0.04 by 0.16. Again, I had to move those decimal spots over twice for each one to get 4 divided by 16. That's how I got 0.25. So I have to go one more spot from a decimal to a percent, so that's why I moved it down here over 2 spots to get 25%. So those two are equal. Okay? So if we just backtrack here, there's a lot of stuff going on. Okay, what I want you to remember is this. Okay? Oops. Going from a percent to a decimal. Okay? You move that decimal point over 2 spots to the left. Move decimal 2 times to the left. Okay, if you have 32%, the equivalent decimal is going to be 0.32. All right, now if you're going from a decimal to a percent, like 0.77, you're going to move decimal point 2 times to the right. Okay, think about this. When you guys are calculating your grades after a test, and let's say you get 71 out of 80, right? You then divide on your calculators 71 divided by 80, and you'll get some decimal like 0.872154, right? Well, you don't have a 0.87%, you then have an 87%. Okay, you're going from a decimal to a percent. So think about those real world examples as well. All right, okay? All right, well, good luck, and I'll see you tomorrow in class. Bye, guys.